Hey, Dragon Dreamers. Gina Virginia Casella here, and welcome to Story Species, Story Medicine, Extra Strength. When we share our stories, we give and receive medicine. One of the best ways to heal is with the earth. And that's exactly what we do with each other right here on Story Species, Story Medicine, Extra Strength. Ready to take your medicine? Hey, Dragon Dreamers, Gina Virginia Casella here, and welcome to Story Species, Story Medicine, Extra Strength. An extra big special welcome to our newest Dragon Dreamers. We've got a lot of new dragons following us ever since our phenomenal first ever conference, Promise of Spring. More and more dragons are feeling the pull energy. And so on that note, share this link with everybody. Let them know we've got a show as well. We do 4 online conferences every year. Today I've got with me a very special guest, Missy Hill. And you know what? She's just like all of my other guests. Once we start talking, it's hard for us to stop. So we've some key points that we want to go over. There's much to say about Missy. I've got a little biography here to read to you. And something that I really appreciate about Missy is that she has not yet published a book. And so I was like, don't worry about it. Come on the show anyways. That's what it's all about. It's about the story medicine, right? If you can do the talking, you can do the writing. And you know what? Not everybody tells story with words. Some people, they paint pictures, they do drumming, they do special dance moves. And so whatever story medicine you have to share, the communication varies. It's a case-by-case scenario. And so if you're like Missy and you haven't formally published yet, this very well could be your stepping stone. And I wanted to remind everybody that when you're a guest on Story Species, Story Medicine, Extra Strength, that I'm going to be compiling summaries. And so everybody's going to default to being in my book come 2027. And so I'm really looking forward to that, to honoring the medicine bearer. So let me read over Missy's biography here. Missy there's so much to say about her. She's a paranormal investigator, a historian more specifically. So she knows all kinds of things about all kinds of things, especially grid work. She specializes in psychic grid reading and galactic earth shamanism. She has an innate ability to go on the land, like just anywhere in the world. Missy will show up and she starts getting information immediately about the history of the land, about the location, the grid lines that run through it. And she has the ability not just to have a sense of awareness, but to actually restore this land. She's got all kinds of travel experience and pictures and information to share. She's been highlighted on the Travel Channel and History Channel specifically for her photos. She's also a speaker. She's conducted all kinds of UFO tours, divine travels, legendary worlds that partner with Royal Caribbean and Princess. Missy is a regular guest on the Typical Skeptic podcast, and it's my pleasure to let everybody know that Missy will be one of our dragon speakers at our next conference, Promise of Spring. Mark your calendars, Dragon Dreamers. Saturday, when is it? June 13th. June 13th. Lots of dates floating around in my mind. Let us know in the comments how you keep track of time. And you know what? Missy's going to be talking to us about how, like many of you, something happened and it inspired a change in her life that led to a lifestyle on the road, riding an 18-wheeler and having boots on the ground and grid work. And so I have this beautiful image in my mind of Missy on this kind of like a different version of a boat, being in the big truck and being connected to the land and having that bird's eye view. And so what else do I want to tell you about Missy? I want to also share with you her link. I put it here in the chat. Now let me just highlight it in the comments So if you want to connect with her, she's got all kinds of links that I asked her. I said, which one is the one that I should share with everybody? Here it is. And she said, just email her directly, hillnitevision@gmail.com. So let me just show you her picture here. And, oh, I'm just fumbling here with StreamYard. All right, there we go. So as you can see, there's Missy Hill on the right, first time guest ever. Picture on the top, that's going to be for 2027. Picture on the bottom, Summer Daze. And the next time Missy's on our show, I'm looking forward to replacing those two side pictures with a picture of her latest book cover. And it's really fun hoping and dreaming with Missy about things like, what would you call the book? And what would a chapter look like or sound like? And so without further ado, let me bring Missy to this stage here. Hi, Missy. Welcome to Story Species, Story Medicine. Thank you so much for joining us. You look great. How you doing?
Great, Gina. It's good to see you. I figure though I want to be outside today because it's just the weather is absolutely gorgeous. We have some cooler weather, and it's finally, hopefully, my eyes were going to be less puffy from all the pollen that we've been having. It's just been like nonstop. I don't know about where you are in the great north, but I'm in Western North Carolina, so it's very much spring. Everything's blooming, and with blooming comes a lot of pollen. Oh no, I don't hear you.
Sorry, I paused myself.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's the technology, sometimes it's the user. That time it was me.
I just
So
love that.
on that note,
I love
people
the
in the chat.
introduction. I love the introduction
Oh,
you gave me. And then what I wanted to do is I pulled a few cards just for fun because I'm in a whimsical mood, and these are very whimsical cards. And today what I got the 10 of Wands, and I feel like this is all that spiritual information from my vertical connection that I've gathered, and it's time to disperse it while the world is going absolute crazy. This is the Tower card, the absolute craziness of the outside world. It's all about teaching and learning and new beginnings. On the physical, we can, no matter what is going on out there, we can still manifest our dreams, when we're clear, because I think a lot of us have been doing enough work that I think it's time.
thank you for that. The tower actually came up in a conversation earlier today.
Yeah.
We were talking about alchemy and things changing and how painful it can be when that tower comes crashing down. In truth, once you're awakened, though, and you learn all those life lessons, you know what? You need to live your life in a way where you're expecting the tower to fall down. It's supposed to fall down, just like the snake skins that we shed. We're supposed to alchemize. And I'm guilty of it too. I tend to cling to the tower. I feel like once I finally build it and get it shaped and molded how I want, it comes crumbling down. And of course, it comes crumbling down when we're not even ready for that, right? And those were cute cards too. The
Aren't they
images, I
fun?
like that.
They're so
Yeah,
fun.
they
I know
are.
you're into that whimsical because I still have that picture of now I can't remember his name, the orange cat, the
Yeah.
Garfield in my mind.
Lucky.
I said he was like
Garfield, you call him.
yeah, spiritual
I think he
Garfield.
likes that.
Yeah. So you tell me where you
Yeah.
want me to start.
That's the thing. Where to start, right? Especially once you get us chatting, it's going to be hard to stop. So, hi, Anchor Haven. I see you there. And Chill Millen, welcome to Story Species, Story Medicine. We're having wonky here in Ontario, really wonky weather. We had -7, actually. I thought that weather was
Ooh.
over. And it's going to be like 14 degrees later on. And that's very typical of Ontario for you in the spring anyways. So
When you say
yeah, where to
14,
start?
is that like in the 50s?
Celsius.
I don't know the math.
Oh,
Is what is it like? Is it
it's like you definitely want to wear a sweater and a light jacket kind of weather.
what I'm doing? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
50s, kind of. That's what it is here today. But it's beautiful. So I'll start,
yeah.
I guess. What I'm getting is start for the day that changed my life, and I can always go back of what up to leading to that, but that was in the year 2000. And I was actually, my husband was a truck driver, and we had moved to Winder, Georgia, which is north of the Atlanta area. Okay. And we were staying in a campground because we were living in our RV. And he was working at a place called Holocks, and he drive the tanker trucks, which is delivering things like liquid oxygen, nitrogen, argon, things like that. And there was one day, and I had my cat Soda with me at this time because I had already found her behind the soda machine. That's another story for later on. She was my orange tabby female cat that actually went over the road as a grid worker. The day that changed my life, I don't know, I was having a feeling of boredness, and because my husband was like getting antsy, like, I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Something's got to change. After working for this place for 8 months, we knew it was going to be temporary. And I had the Rand McNally map because I've always loved maps. And back in those days, before there was GPS with what was called the Qualcomm with the cell phones, but we didn't have and I think it was, we didn't have GPS on our phones or anything like that. So I had the old Rand McNally map out, and I was looking at a map of the United States, and I was playing with my pendulum and just going over it, and I ended up over the four corners doing this, and I heard, "You are going to do grid work." It was almost like an audible sound inside my head and yet outside. So I couldn't distinguish between whether it was in my head or outside. And at that time, I didn't think it was voice to skull technology because I didn't even know anything about that. Right. So I was like, okay. And then I took a walk outside. I decided to take a little hike, and there was a man that was doing falconry with his hawk. He had the glove, and he had the bird, and it was just flying everywhere and looking around and coming back to him. And I made the connection between that hawk and me looking at these grid lines on the earth. So I had told my husband about this, and I said, you know what? I guess I want to go to truck driving school. I know this is going to be a little bit of a challenge, especially backing one of those 18-wheelers, because I know one time we actually, for fun, on a Thanksgiving, which, here in the United States, we celebrate that. I know other countries, they don't necessarily celebrate that holiday, but we on that day, he took me to a parking lot of a truck stop, and I'm sitting there trying to drive this truck and back it and all this stuff. And, you have to shift it, so it's the clutch. I did learn on a stick shift when I was young. I was obsessed with driving when I was young. When I could start driving a lawnmower at age 12, I did. So I remember, driving my dad's MG and Fiat and different things that he had. So I was with the gears and stuff like that. And I had a Volkswagen Bug, an old one, and different things. But trying to push the clutch in one of these 18-wheelers, because you have to do something called double clutching. And my husband's able to listen to it. So he would only have to use the clutch for backing up, which is really difficult, and starting, from first gear, because by the sound of it, he didn't even have to use the clutch. He could just do it. I never learned that. I was never that good at it. So let me tell you, my left leg was getting a workout from doing this. So I did go to truck driving school, and it was, it was interesting. It was a challenge. By the skin of my teeth, I passed the backing, because I was supposed to do this, even though when I actually got out on the road, I didn't want to do the backing. It's like, you want to back into the dock? I'm like, no, you go ahead and do it. So I
Can't
didn't
help
want to.
but laugh because as you tell the story, I can see you there with your husband, and he has the way of knowing and you don't, and I was just going to say too, scooch a little bit to your right, because
Okay,
if
yeah, that's what
somebody's
I was trying
watching
to.
on their cell phone, it shows yeah, okay, we can
Okay,
see
that's
you
what I was
now.
trying to figure out. Well, because I'm trying to center this on my iPad outside. Okay, that has a glare for me, but as long as it doesn't have a
No,
glare for you, I don't care.
no, that's okay.
So, all this is going to go in the book, but as Soda seeing it, Soda watching, because when we first actually, okay, so fast forward a bit, I passed school, I got my license, and it was right before winter. And the first thing they do after, when you're practicing right before you graduate, is you have to get on what's called the Spaghetti Bowl of Atlanta, Interstate 285. And I was like, ah, talk about activating some PTSD. Luckily, it was before it snowed, because being in one of those things when it snows, that's a whole other can of worms you don't even want to open. So in the story, I always see Soda as a little girl, which I actually have called either Through the Eyes of a Cat or the Soda Chronicles, if there's more than one, where Soda tells the story of, she sees herself as a human little girl, like how beloved she was with this beautiful red hair and these bright green eyes. But then you find out that she's a cat, and you also find out that she's actually talking about her life from the other side, and how she's projecting herself, where she's kind of like the guide or guardian or aspect of another part of a soul identity and female form to my masculine cat now, Arthur, which is like carries King Arthur codes, but it's Thor, like like Thor, right? Son of Odin, who carries Mjolnir, the hammer, right? And I always see the hammer, because I work with the hammer, as a plasma type of hammer with stones that make sounds. So it can actually be used etherically, like if there's a hurricane, part of me will be up there with this hammer moving it around, similar to working with Excalibur or the Ankh or even the Trident, because I've kind of seen aspects of me that works with all of those things, that you could actually say, open portals, particle accelerators, however you want to use them. So Soda's connected to Arthur, and Arthur is able to go into the past through remote viewing and find himself through meditation in Soda's body, experiencing what she experienced years ago. So that's the premise of the book, where it'll go back and forth. It'll also have public figures in it, because one of the scenes, now my issue has been, I put a lot of this in Grok and Chat GBT, and it's in Google Drive, and it's sent in emails, because I'm not a writer. I bypassed, I didn't have, because I traveled, I never have had a desktop computer in my life, because I'm a hands-on kind of person. I was a personal trainer. I was an aerobics instructor. I was a licensed massage and bodywork therapist. So everything, and then I've even, I've done a variety of things, including waiting tables, modeling, perfume. I was a magician's assistant. So I'm the jack of all trades. I'm not a master maybe of any of them, but I'm pretty good at a lot of things, including music, music, things like that. So I never really got into the whole thing, because I changed my major from writing. I was thinking maybe I want to get into writing and journalism, and then I went into more of an exercise science, and then acting and directing, which is still more of a hands-on thing, but it is all under the guise of entertainment. All this is for entertainment purposes, just so you know. So writing this and getting it written and getting it where it doesn't get lost is an issue. So I'm looking for people to help me with this, because I do feel this is my life's work, that I have to get this story down, which is a real life story of my life, but as seen through the eyes of a cat, or my cats, because I had many cats, as many as 7 cats at one time, and a squirrel, and 11 chickens and 1 rooster.
sounds like a nice big family, had like a homestead going on there. That's amazing information. I was going to ask too, like it's worth noting that it's all based on a true story. And I think it's really cool and really fascinating, the two cats having a connection to each other and connecting with you. And then there's this hawk business as well, and the man, and just everything coming together, like truckers being on the road. Truckers are heroes. Like, you know, they're delivering things, getting people from point A to point B. The roads are dangerous. You know, there's a lot of stamina. A lot of people don't realize the gravity of the situation when you're a trucker. You're not just driving, like, you have to pay attention. So you're doing all those things, additionally soaking up all this information about the earth around you. And I feel too, like just your personal body physically, we all have a special connection to the earth, but you're defaulting into a deeper connection to the point that you almost transform into the elementals. I don't know, but you're transforming into some kind of connection where you're even way up there in the sky, a different aspect of you working with Thor. And I wrote down the goddess Bridget when you were chatting, because I always think about Bridget and the hammer and the ironing and the shaping and molding of things. And when you started talking about Thor and the weather, I thought, oh yeah, because see, this is synchronicity now. This is the time of year where we have really wonky weather, right? And there's a really beautiful story about the goddess Bridget, who falls in love with her husband, but she hasn't even met him yet. She doesn't even know him. And so through dreams, they communicate with each other, and he comes to save her. But to make a long story short, she's the sovereignty goddess, and has a conversation with spring and winter. And they basically agree to exchange 3 days of summer for 3 days of winter. So that's why this time of year, we get these like really weird days. And that's why in August we get warm weather. And I was just wondering, like, have you ever felt like on more than one occasion you just are tapped into the weather and cycles, not just on the earth land, but like clouds can be considered a land, ice can be considered a land. Like, you're nodding yes. Why don't you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, first of all, I got to bring up Bridget, which is synchronicity, because I went to Ireland years ago, okay? And when I had these hens, I named one of the hens that was a Buff Orpington, which is a blonde hen, lays brownish eggs. Her name was Bridget. And then I had a Rhode Island Red, and her name was Aer Lingus, which is the airline we flew on when we went to Dublin. You know, we went to Dublin and came back from Shannon. So yes, this whole thing with the weather, because I don't know if I told you this, the past 2 years, the Aurora Borealis, as I connect in with the Hyperborean timelines and more of my Nordic Viking self, because I do have a lot of, my mother was Norwegian. I mean, Norwegian, German, Scott, Irish, but mostly in the Norwegian. And so connecting with Norway, the grids of Norway, I really have a call to go to Norway to drive the Atlantic Road. One of my best friends as a little girl was from Sweden. You know, I dated a guy that was Finnish, and I wasn't even aware of some of this stuff because it was like part of like programming that had to go in the back burner until it was time for me to connect. And a lot of it had to do with, believe it or not, those superheroes, you know, the Marvel comics and things like that. Then me wanting to, and I had named my cat Freya, you know, so I always had this connection. But the deeper connection of understanding the power of the weather, you know, which is the god of thunder and sound, where Loki is like the, you know, the lightning. So for the past 2 years, I've been getting pictures. I'm able to feel when there's the geomagnetic storms. I can't remember which way they go. You know, that's for Ra Castaldo, who's actually going to be in this seminar with us. He gets into the whole thing about the sun and the geomagnetics and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm able to see, feel the auroras. You know, they call to me. They tell me, come out and photograph us. So I could see it sort of with my third eye, and then digital cameras will pick up the pictures, and then I'll enhance it. And it's a lot of pink, it's a lot of purple, it's a lot of blue. So yes, I'm connecting with that, and I'm also connecting with the element of storms. I absolutely hate hurricanes, and sometimes I'm put in spots where I have to neutralize hurricanes or I'm removed from it. Like Hurricane Helene, when it hit Western North Carolina, it was actually on my husband's birthday. We went down to South Carolina and we were driving through a place called Chimney Rock and Lake Lure after leaving Black Mountain. We went to walk this labyrinth with our cat, Arthur, who is at the Light Center. And then after that, when we went to Chimney Rock, I felt like being by the water and taking pictures. And he's like, well, we got to get back. You know, we have company coming. We can't stay. And I had this feeling like I need to be here. Little did I know a couple weeks later that we were going to be caught off guard and they were going to manipulate the weather with Helene. And that even connects in with like the whole Helen of Troy thing. And they had another storm. You know, it's almost like predictive programming, and it was directed energy weapons to, you know, hit the land mass of Western North Carolina for the resources because there's a lot of lithium in the mountains. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do with storms, and even there was one named after me called Melissa that hit Jamaica. I was kind of told to stay out of that and just see protection and work with the coast of the United States and Canada and, you know, going all the way down just our border of the Atlantic and not mess with Jamaica. So
That's really fascinating. And I wonder too, like, you know, because I get the impression somebody like yourself, if you can do something, you'll do it. You know, if you need to save the world, create a storm, neutralize a storm, you're there. But
yeah,
respectfully, we all have our special place in the greater puzzle that we all belong to. And so there might be a need for you to step in, but then sometimes there's a need for somebody else. It may or may not be safe for you. And I like that because whatever higher guidance you're working with, they're not just exploiting you, because I do hear stories like that too, where light workers are completely burnt out and they don't have any energy, because any energy that they have, it's like it has to constantly be utilized. And so that's really fascinating. I had a few laughs when you were talking because
it'll make you
yeah,
sick if you
driving.
don't. It can make you sick. I mean, I've ended up not feeling well after doing that work.
You know what? That's another, like, I wrote lots of notes when you were talking because, well, I was going to talk about intrusive entities. And if you ever felt like maybe something like that was going on, if you were like battling a storm, neutralizing it, but then you end up absorbing it um, instead of like deflecting it away. Like, have you ever felt like you neutralized a storm, but then now part of that's like stuck with you, and then now you have to do more healing work to
Yeah,
wash that
yeah.
out?
With a lot of things, it's a lot of my healing and different things with working with people because I'm an empath. That is a learning curve to not take it on. It's not easy. There's a fine line of how do you do this and not take it into your body, which I don't think we should do. You know, that's what the problem with Edgar Casey was. Edgar Casey was sick because he took everybody's stuff on, and we really, it's not healthy to do that. I mean, you might need to do it in the beginning when you're learning, but once you learn, then there comes a point where, and then there comes a point where you have to back off and not try to do everything because it will deplete you.
Absolutely, having healthy boundaries, right? And so even like if a spirit entity, communication, higher guidance came to you because they needed you to go somewhere, they have to first and foremost be aware of your energy field and make sure that you're in a condition that you can go somewhere and help out, right? Like, you can't bring a weapon with you, so to speak, that isn't working or functioning when you're relying on it. And also having a boundary within yourself to say no. Like, you don't always have to feel like you want to respond when spirit calls, so to speak, but you also want to practice discernment in your learning journey to make sure that you're responding to the right folks. You know, I know in my personal life, I struggled with that discernment. It kept coming up and I didn't get it. And then it was like, oh, okay, now I get it. I was saturated with intrusive entities who, some of them were really there for me. It's kind of confusing, but now they're allies. And some of them I've never heard from again. And then just like you said, being an empath, you absorb energy when you don't mean to, and epigenetics matters. So even if you're in an environment where the people around you are very negative for whatever reasons, you take that in. And if you're always around those people, it's like you can't even discern if that's your own negativity or theirs, because
Oh
it's
my
just
God.
always this like funk around you, you know? So I get
That,
really passionate about energy, because the way we think and feel is a very energy. Your thoughts are so important, you know, they rule you. We can easily have a conversation about the rules of the mind. I started laughing and wrote a note here because you're like, I'm not a writer, but it's like, okay, you're not a writer, but you are a story species. And so whether you realize it or not, every time you're talking, sharing your story, you're actually sharing medicine. And when you receive a story, you're receiving medicine. Even if you don't need it, you just tuck it in your back pocket and maybe somebody else will need it, you know? And to me, that's very powerful. And so I feel excited and encouraged for you, because just being on this show is a huge milestone. And you could easily take the transcript of this and work with it, you know.
yeah,
So that's an option too. And then
yeah,
what else did I write? Oh, go ahead.
no, it makes me think of when I was in English class, I used to, I wasn't bad in English class, but I was always the one that had run on sentences. I didn't know when a sentence, I could make one sentence into a paragraph without taking a breath. So I guess as long as I get somebody to help me after the fact with all that editing.
And you know what? Like the artificial intelligence, the rewriter, there's a time and a place for that, right? And somebody like yourself could easily just talk to it and it'll help like rewrite it and get clarity. So it's still your story,
Oh,
you
I've
know, it's not
tried.
just writing for you.
Yeah, I've tried, and just to even help me with a little bit of embellishment to get me, to not use the same words over and over again. But I keep telling it has soda has green eyes, and it would make mistakes, But it would put. But what was great for is like when I was doing this whole segment about Art Bell and Art Bell's Alien, because Art Bell, is out in Pahrump, Nevada when he was alive, and I used to listen to Coast to Coast. Well, my friend Joshua P. Warren actually ended up with Art Bell's Alien, which was called Carvel the Alien, which was actually gifted to Art Bell from Rush Limbaugh. Okay, so this alien actually had projected itself to me when I would go to his mystery museum. When he moved across the country, Art Carvel wanted to stay with me. Art Bell had to get this thing out of his house because he said it was coming to life at night, and his Filipino wife and daughter were afraid of it, like it was a haunted thing from all the shows where Art Bell would be, playing Midnight in the Desert by Crystal Gale, and smoking a cigar and closing out the show. And he had all these callers calling in, so every night this alien witnessed all these shows that he did talking about UFOs, Area 51, all these different things, right? So I actually have a chapter that's dedicated to Art Bell's Alien, where Soda finds herself in the museum. And then, of course, Arthur is like seeing all this. And when Arthur gets stressed out about it, his favorite thing is to take a bottle cap, like from some of that sports water that's got the top. If you throw this bottle top, Arthur will retrieve it like a dog. So all this is stuff that's going to be in the story, all these pieces.
I love that. And you know what? Animals in stories help to lighten things up and even open that door even more. And just it's really novelty that the cat would chase something like a dog.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it's through the cat's perspective as well. And it would be really appealing to children too, even if it's targeted or not for children, just because of the whole cats, and children soak that kind of stuff right up, right? And I'm noticing we've got the natural sentient with us here. So good to see you, Slavka, and Julia's hanging out with us too. And I wrote a note here also about the elementals, because like our bodies are the land. We're sovereign, just like the earth, and just like Mama Earth, Pachamama, Spirit, Gaia, whatever language folks out there are using. We have our own organs and veins and healing, and we heal with the earth. Like we can heal with storms, like what you're describing. We can help to neutralize storms. We can work with this energy. We can go to the water. We can use fire ceremony to transform things. And you know what? The elementals, well, that's what we're made out of. We're made out of the earth, the air, the fire, the water. So I always say, like, we're walking, talking trees, we're beaver dams in our own right and healing with each other. And then somebody like yourself is even more deeply tapped into this. Shapeshifter comes to mind, because, like, whether you're physically shapeshifting or not, like, on a spiritual level, you're able to do that. I don't know how else to describe it, but you're able to somehow shapeshift into the water cycle. And I have a close relationship with the air and the water. And so when I do like my own regression and stuff like that, it's kind of confusing because I'm not sure if I'm the tree, if I'm the roots helping out with the adhesion cohesion. And that's when I started connecting, oh, I'm the water. That's why I'm everywhere. And I'm also the air. That's why I'm here and over there at the same time. And so cloud formations came to mind, and just, when I think about hurricanes and storms, and just the warm air, all these images came to mind, and that's what you do. You capture images, and I was wondering, because you mentioned modeling earlier. So have you ever done some modeling, like just at the beach or in front of these storms? I'm curious now.
Well, not that kind of model. I mean, I tried to do that, but it was more like selling things. So you're a model because you're in a store and you're displaying items, but yes, sort of had the modeling pictures and have done some acting, some bit parts in movies. Like I said, I was a magician's assistant, so I used to regularly do where I would get cut in half and uh, sawed in half, and I'd be part of me. It'd be in one box and one in another. Magician never reveals his secrets or her secrets, because I actually am not the magician. I'm the assistant. But we would
I
do a
can see you getting
corporate.
spun around there. Legs are over here, head is over there. But
Yeah.
like, this was even before you started driving a truck. So there was always
Oh
magic
yeah,
in your life
this
by the
is
sounds
all
of it.
this acting and stuff and bands. Play. I was a sub for the bands that would, and a DJ. The bands that would needed a front woman singing. I mean, I play guitar and stuff too, but I look at myself as I'm better than mediocre. And if I practiced, I'd be great. It's carrying over from other lifetimes. I'm good enough for going to a bar if everybody's had a few, or a campfire, and also with the drumming and the fire ceremony, that's happened a lot, the sweat lodges. But with all that, me too, I'm mostly connected to the water. And I actually am in the town of Hot Springs right now, so I'm not far from the springs. The only thing is the springs are monetized. You can't just go in these hot springs without paying big money to go in these springs, which is a shame, really. Where in Arkansas, you can at least drink the water. When you go into Hot Springs, Arkansas, you can go fill up. There's other springs. Now, when we were on the road as truck drivers, I think it's 100 miles or so outside of Las Vegas, there was a town that we happened upon in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't even really a town. There was like maybe a gas station convenience store there. We walked across the street. We actually found a hot springs, and we were the only ones there. And that kind of natural, except they did have some like brick around it to keep the mud from going everywhere. And that was very healing. And then there was another place we used to go to that had the hot water piped in, called the Firewater Bed and Breakfast, which was in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Yeah. There was a show called that.
What a name for that.
Yeah, there was a show called that years ago, and I don't know if they named that after the show or the show was named after that town. I can't remember, but I know the story of that. And that was a very beautiful place, very activating to go to, you know, places in New Mexico, go to Meteor Crater in Arizona, which if you go to Meteor Crater and you stand there and you make a sound, your sound is absorbed and you'll hear I hear ringing in my ears a lot. If I start paying attention, I'll tune in, right? I don't want to hear ringing. I mean, high pitch. But this place, you can't help. It's so quiet that you hear a constant ringing, like that's like a hiss. And if you go to this place, it actually looks like where they filmed the moon landings. It looks like a crater on the moon. And if you know the story about the moon landings, that supposedly Stanley Kubrick had something to do with that, and all that stuff was in the can. And that's where the pictures came from. Because, of course, on the moon, the flag isn't going to move. There's no wind and stuff like that. So Meteor Crater, it was especially very, very healing. And there's a story again in the book where Soda driving the truck, because Soda actually used to drive. She'd have her head on the steering wheel and she'd be helping you drive. She'd get up on top of the dash and look out. Well, there was this plastic alien there. So there's this that's looking out the window as we're pulling in to Meteor Crater, and there's a whole story just on Soda with this plastic alien. Then, of course, Arthur's got to get involved and go into the past and go see this stuff. So a lot of it's, funny, but like I said, some of it's been lost. It's all up here still, but how to get this out, because I would love to get this out by the end of this year. I really would. I would love
to. You know what? Like, just you got to get the transcript. Like you got to get the transcript. So you just got to get the words together, and then you cut and paste that right onto KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. That really confused me, because if you want to sell a book on Amazon, you have to create the book on Kindle Direct Publishing, and then
that's
Kindle
good.
Direct Publishing.
Okay.
Yeah, Kindle Direct Publishing will do that. And it's easy to do, but like anything else, it's a matter of familiarity, right? But step one, like I tell everybody this story. So if I already told it to you, stop me, I won't tell it. But like, I know folks on Story Species, Story Medicine have heard of this before. So when I published my books, I actually thought I was going to die. And so I thought, you know what? I need to publish these books, because if I die, I'm going to die very unsettled. And I could barely speak. I had like zero energy. So I had a headset and I didn't even wear it. I just took the microphone and I was mumbling into it on Microsoft Word. And there's a dictation button. So when you talk into it, it records you. Now, it wasn't perfect. Sometimes I got the words wrong or whatever, but I was able to cut and paste that into the artificial rewriter. So it helped out with grammar. It wasn't perfect, but it was perfect enough for me, because I didn't want an editor. I didn't want somebody to help me write it. It was my story. I didn't want anyone else's name on there. And one of my friends, Brian Rue, he was really inspiring, because he basically told me not to give a crap. You could publish a second edition. You could publish a revised copy. So you don't have to worry about, any of that kind of stuff. Like in some of my books, there's like 2 sentences repeated, whatever, because you know what? It's the quality of the people who are going to read your book, not the quantity. The people who really give a crap, they don't care about stuff like that. And those are the people who are going to buy your book. Doesn't matter if it even doesn't make sense. It's just, there's an energy in there because it's you, so get on Microsoft Word and start talking to yourself. Something else I did, another option, was when I published the Dragon Dreams Oracle. Wholly overwhelming. There's just too much to say about each card, right? Like one card is one book, basically. Well, there's like 91 cards. I don't have time to write 91 books. And so I was like, I need to do this. And so I sat down with my guides outside, put it on Zoom, and I had a meeting with the committee of the ones who listen. That's a whole separate story. But for this purpose here, it's another option for you and people like you. You record yourself on Zoom, get the upgraded Zoom, And then you just cancel it after if you don't want it, or try out the free trial, because when you talk, it records what you say. It creates a summary. So again, it's not perfect, but at least it's something that you can work with. So I talked for like 4 hours for, I don't know, like 2 weeks in a row. Zoom gave me a little summary of what I wrote. And then I played around with it. Now, it's kind of hilarious because like I had to limit it to just a little paragraph or two just for this, because it's an oracle, right? So it's just a process, and I'm excited what will unfold for you. You'll get there. You'll get there. You will. It's just a matter of doing it. Like, you can pay somebody money to help you, or just do what I said, and it's fine. Like, you have the gift to gab, right? And you have lots of really important story medicine to share. So just do it.
But if I don't have another person, it's like I don't feel I have the gift of gab. I feel like I have to be looking at somebody and interacting with somebody. Maybe Arthur.
Well, that's what this show's all about. Then you'll just have to keep being a returning guest and keep using the transcript, right?
Yeah.
Like right now, like after this is recording live. So when we're finished, you can check out the transcript, and there you go. Cut and paste it into a Microsoft Word document. And that's step one.
Okay, I need to learn. I never even did the Microsoft stuff, because all Google things were, like I said, on my phone, and this is Apple, so I have to do the Apple version of whatever Microsoft Word is, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, you know what? You go on Rob's show all the time. Go back to those shows that you've been on, find the transcript. It should be available. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Find the transcript.
You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to try to simulcast this with my YouTube too, because I have a problem trying to upload everything to YouTube. I'm like, oh my God, it's like the blind leading myself when it comes to the tech stuff. But what I'm supposed to learn, I do, because when I had my Blog Talk radio show, it was bizarre. This was, I think it was in 2012, the beginning, and I had a leak in my bathroom. And all this stuff with the floor. I'd already had one leak in our bedroom, and then this was the guest bedroom, where it was like all this piping, it just like burst, and all this leaking. But I heard at that time, when I had to get rid of a bunch of furniture because I was going to expand that other bathroom and bedroom and make it into like a spa bathroom, I heard, "Do the radio show now." And I'm like, it was another one of those voices, like, audibly outside, inside. I'm like, what do you mean? So Blog Talk I was able to walk myself and somehow teach myself to do it through Blog Talk. The only problem with most of all those Blog Talk interviews now, they took it down. They're all gone. And that's like people that are not here anymore on the planet, which is sad, because I had a lot of interviews with people that have passed, like Timothy Green Beckley comes to mind, and Franco Di Nicola. I don't even know if you know any of these names. So, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. And you know what? The struggle is real. And that's another reason why I wanted to publish my books, because it's like after I published the first 4, I published a second 4. And the second 4, I just felt like an urgency, like I needed to get those stories out, because the downloads were just coming. Like, I had other stuff I needed to publish, but okay, those downloads are coming. But I didn't have the space on my computer, and the brain fog was setting in. And so that was another reason why I published, because at least I could publish it. And then if I lost it on my computer or whatever, well, you know what? It's published. Right? It's out there. And what to do is order a copy right away, so you have the hard copy version printed. Like, you can print your book, but it's going to cost a fortune. But it's better to get Amazon to print it for you. Like, order a copy of your own book.
I think that's better.
For some reason, if your book gets canceled or something like that, well, you still have the freaking hard copy, right? And then you find another place to publish it. And
I love that.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. Like, wherever there's a will, there's a way. And like, this is what story species, story medicine is all about. And I really appreciate you sharing all of this, because like, I was a public school teacher, and so many people, they're like, I don't know how to write. And it's like, if you can talk, you can write, like,
Yep.
And And just like I said, like you've been on Rob's show, other shows, go back and get those transcripts, go
There
back and get them.
was time for a while
Um,
I couldn't talk, and it was after that eclipse. So here I was, and it's frustrating because a speaker that can't speak, that's very frustrating when you know you're supposed to be speaking and yet you feel like you have lockjaw and your throat chakra's closed because whatever happened with that first eclipse, that we had one going one way that ended up in the southern part of Illinois, then we had the other one. So the first one, it like took my voice away for a while, and then the other one was back. But little did I know the shit was just gonna hit the fan with me, starting with the the death of my cat Soda, and then my mother who passed of cancer, and then all these changes. I lost all my cats in that time and had to move, and then of course we had that awful virus that was going around, so I had to actually pretty much go dark for a while, but not for local events. I still did local events where I was speaking, but I wasn't on the air so much, maybe a little bit here and there, but not like now. It was more focused on festivals and selling things at flea markets and different things until the other eclipse. And then it's like my voice came back, you know?
it was interesting when you said eclipse because I was thinking like full moon, new moon cycle, because the new moon is the darkness, and it was like that darkness time in your life, the womb and tomb. You were in the tomb part. There's lots of death, shedding, letting go, things you didn't have control over. Your mother's cancer, a cat's dying, you had to relocate. But now it's like the full moon is rising again, and it reminds me about that tarot card you pulled, the Tower. Like it's this
Oh,
up
yeah.
and down, and the wild ride that we're all a part of, right? And so this show and the conference is targeted for people like us. Like to us, this is very normal, natural to have these conversations. But there's a lot of people out there, they get made fun of, especially in their childhood. They're very shut down. And when you mentioned like you lost your voice, it hit me because even right now, I'm still recovering, and I'm shouting when I don't mean to because I took my
Huh.
voice for granted. I had a severe panic attack. It was totally undermined. And I took my vitality for granted. And my voice in particular, like I have a strong teaching career back me, leadership. I don't need a microphone, I'm in the gym, out on the field. I would actually need a microphone now. And like I said, moments like this, I find myself shouting because I don't, my voice is recovering. It's not something that's just going to recover overnight. And I feel like that's like anything in life. Like if you're used to walking and then you can't walk all of a sudden, and that was your means of communication, like it's really devastating. And so, thank you for giving me some space right now just to reiterate this because especially when people get older and they have these interesting experiences and whatnot, nobody wants to listen to them. They feel alone. Their circle of friends gets smaller because people are dying, you're getting older. And then it's like, who do you talk to about this kind of stuff? If they're hearing voices, oh, well, you're just a senior citizen, you're going, no, you're not going senile. You're not losing your mind. Like, here you have a young adult who's experiencing this stuff. It goes back to childhood. Somebody who is up there with the storms up in the sky, right? Like, imagine the relief somebody like yourself would bring with your story medicine to people who are just feeling really alone, right? And so, tell us a little bit about growing up and this kind of like, spiritual experiences, and if it was normal, natural, if there was any times you felt kind of freaked out, or did you ever share your story and somebody made fun of you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, let me tell you this first. I want to say that it wasn't a physical loss of my voice so much. It wasn't really that. It was more of a spiritual going dark where I was not able to speak. Something triggered a PTSD in me. Actually, I remember the show that did, and I started going down the Montauk super soldier realm. And now I'm fully I'm fine with that. But back then, as some of these memories were coming in, I just was like, I can't do this because the final straw was when I'm going to talk about this actually tonight on Rob's show, because I'm going to be on talking just about music tonight and the influence of rock music and how rock music programs us and things like that. And part of this was inspired by Julia, okay, Anchor Haven, because she said she doesn't remember the song Julia by the Beatles. And she thinks it's a Mandela effect. And for her, it might very well be, but I always remember the song because my parents played Beatles ever since I was a baby, and it was on the White Album. So growing up, I think I was sensitive to ghosts, because when I went to my great grandmother's house in New Jersey, I felt that there was somebody that was dead inside the attic. And I was afraid to go in this bedroom and the bathroom in this one section of the house. And that's where Marcia lived as a little girl. And the reason I always felt death in the house is because way back then, they had, this would be my great grandmother. So they had funerals in the house. That was a normal thing to do. And I always picked up on that. But see, I wasn't told these things until later. So there was a lot of things I wasn't told. And I shut down because of not knowing certain things and not thinking it was okay. Because I would actually, as a kid, I wouldn't say I was wasn't a sick kid, but wasn't a healthy kid, had a lot of allergies. And when I was sick, I would find myself out of my body floating on the ceiling and feeling like I'm this gigantic thing, like my body that's this wide is like gigantic, like, and it feels heavy, and it's like, like I'm actually part of the earth, or I'm like a titan. I would feel these very bizarre experiences of just feeling really weird. And then of course when you get into teenager, then your interests change, boys and just music, rock stars. So I was a normal kid in that way. But yeah, I don't know. I feel I was sort of weird because I felt like I was bullied. You know, I'd find myself wanting to skip class and go sit in the library and start reading ghost books or whatever.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. There's so many of us, even adults, where we sense those kind of things and we brush it off, right? And we're just left to think like there's something wrong with us. And when we don't have the epigenetics, a community, and environment that's open to having these conversations. And like, I don't know about you, but I was raised Roman Catholic, and we celebrated the North American holidays, Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy. So everything about that was okay. But when two angels came out of my wall, oh, you're not allowed to talk about that. But we're Roman Catholic. Wouldn't angels be like welcomed? It turns out they weren't angels. To this day, I don't know what they were, but I know I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't hallucinating. And, I heard them. It blew my mind. I've never to this day heard anything with that kind of magnitude, harmony. And it's scary. And I was going to ask you if you ever felt like your senses were thrown off, because when those two angels came out of my wall when I was 7 years old, my vision and hearing flip-flopped. So my vision blurred, and my hearing, it would just like, I don't know, I would like tune out, because your mind's number one job is to protect you, even if it means lying to you and creating false inhibiting beliefs that keep you stagnant. So my mind immediately was like, oh my God, this is bullshit. Angels coming out of the wall. What the hell, right? So let's just tell this little girl, Gina, that it's angels. But my vision was like, I don't want to see clearly anymore because my world doesn't make sense anymore. And then that was scary, that my world didn't make sense because nothing should be coming out of the wall. But it was also scary that I didn't make sense. And then nobody said, Gina, you're a liar. But it's like, what else are you saying to me when you don't believe me and tell me to not talk about this kind of stuff, right? And then it's like, when the vision and hearing are flip-flopping, it only adds to the story that I am a liar and that I am an attention seeker, because like you said, nobody talked to me about this. I didn't know until later on in the latter of my career. Like, this is all part of psychology. Like, trauma does that to your body. It throws off your senses. Things happen to you that you can't explain. And to this day, like, my hearing, it's like better now, but I still wear contact lenses. And I have a belief that if I can help like unblock that, that my vision will correct itself, because for what it's worth, my vision hasn't really changed since. So anyways, I'm just like, I find it really fascinating. So I'm wondering if you can relate in any way, if you've ever felt like your senses were thrown off, like for the better or for the worse.
Well, one time, well, what comes to me, the one story of when I was a child, I think I've told on other shows, but because this pertains more to the grid working, I want to go back to that. When I was in the Las Vegas area, and talk about being a truck driver and how hard it is for somebody that is, a highly sensitive person. They call us, right? HSP. That's what they call us. And, being an empath and things like that. When you're a truck driver, they want those and you drive as a team. They want those wheels turning constant, like, pretty much 24/7, because they want you to average some companies want you to average 47 miles an hour. Some want you to average 50 miles per hour. Now, yeah, when you're on the open road and you're out west, you can go 75, 80 miles an hour. The thing that doesn't make sense in California is, for cars, the speed limit is like 70. I don't know if it's this way anymore. I hope not, because I think it's very dangerous. The car, it's 70 miles per hour for cars, but it's 55 for trucks, which doesn't make any sense unless it's like curvy, and you have to be using the jake brake. Because sometimes if you're heavily loaded, yeah, you do have to slow it down and gear down because of that weight. But one time I was in the Vegas area, and we were getting diesel fuel, because of course you put diesel in a truck. Don't want to put gasoline in a truck. It runs on diesel. Diesel's a lot more expensive right now than gasoline is. But I'm driving, or I'm sitting there, and I just break down in front of the steering wheel when I stop to fuel up, get Ron to fuel up, because I felt like somebody was using me. I was so tired that something was looking out of my eyes, and it wasn't me, and my senses were a mess. I just couldn't cope. And I was like, I knew I was supposed to do it. And at this point, my husband was almost ready to get off the road, I think, because we were on the road for 3 years. And then after the 3 years, I actually had to physically recover for 3 years. My body, it took so much out of me that I actually had to physically recover. But I was so glad I did this, because I made it to 47 out of 48 states. The only state I did not get to was Vermont, but I'd been there before. But I feel bad because Soda didn't get to go to Vermont, because when we went to Maine, we didn't have to go through Vermont. And this brings me to the time when we were when I was at this place getting diesel. I can't remember if it was a Petro. I don't remember. There's Petro, there's Flying J, there's TA, there's Pilot. These are the big ones. Loves. Then they have some other ones, right? They have some in the middle of the New Mexico, Arizona, that there's casinos that you can go to, like the I'm trying to remember this one casino that really had really good food in New Mexico. I can't think of the name of it right now. I probably will, but it was like sort of the same thing that happened to me when I was in why can't I think of the name of the place right now, in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. And we went to the Great Salt Lake, and when I was very tired. When I was on the salt flats, I felt all this stuff about Egyptian mummies, and I saw the uh, the gold rush. The people that went from the Midwest in the 1800s to California. And there was many different types of people for different reasons. There was the Mormons for religion. There was like the Seventh-day Adventists, but mostly it was the gold rush, people wanting to leave for gold. But if you look at Joseph Smith and everything to do with what he thought about, he was into all this Egyptian stuff. Like, and I'm getting this stuff about Egyptian mummies and this and that. And I remember researching, because I would hear it on Art Bell and George Norrie, as David Hatcher Childress always talked about, the waters being a barrier. So the Olmecs came, when I was in Illinois, at the mounds there, all the stuff to do with, they called it Little Egypt, because all these artifacts that were Egyptian and Olmec and all these things were found there. So being back in Salt Lake City, there was this time I went to the Mormon, where they had the temple, and we took a tour of that, and we were taking a walk in Salt Lake City at night. And this was after the Olympics, so it was super clean. There was not one piece of garbage on the ground in Salt Lake City, and I thought this was truly amazing. But this whole thing about Revelation 22 in the Bible came to me about the tree of life and the river on both sides. I could tell this was Masonically done, and it was geared after this whole biblical story of Revelation 22. Then we got to hear the organ, and then the weird thing is about this is we were in a Barnes and Noble. And in a Barnes and Noble, I had been trying to order this book after listening to Zachariah Sitchin on, because all this was before I had found Keylontic science. I didn't really know anything about, Ashiana Dean and Keylonic science. I hadn't discovered that. I don't even know if she might have written those books at that time, but I didn't necessarily know about them. I had followed things like John Anthony West and Graham Hancock, Fingerprints of the Gods. That's the kind of stuff I was reading back then, because I was actually reading books back then. Now I don't read so many books. It's too much online, this and that, so I don't read as many books. I need to write it instead of read it. Oh, my rhododendrons are coming out. How beautiful. I'm starting to see pink buds on the rhododendron plant. So I had tried to order this book at a Barnes and Noble, because we used to order things from brick and mortar stores, and I couldn't get this book called The Lost Book of Enki from Zachariah Sitchin. What happened is, when I was at a Barnes and Noble in Salt Lake City, it actually fell off the shelf for me. And as I started reading this book, I had memories. Now, one time it was actually in the town of Hot Springs, not far from where I am. We were doing what's called bobtailing. And bobtailing is when you do not have a trailer. Now, it's kind of squirrely because all this weight is in the front end. You don't have much weight in the back, because that's where you would, have the trailer to hook up, the fifth wheel part of it to the truck. And we decided to take a hike, and I found some wild strawberries, probably about this time of the year. Found wild strawberries, wasn't feeling too good. And all of a sudden I was seeing this thing where I was like, this whole Tiamat story was coming to me, where I felt like I was connected to Tiamat and Maldek, that I actually was, and Tara, where I was a part of that consciousness. Like, I don't know if, Ashiana Dean would call that, now it's called the Palladorian Covenant, and the different, stations of harmonic universes, how we're in density 1 here, and obviously we're in the third dimension, which is starting to change. I like to call it 3.5, because we're not quite in the fourth, even though we spend a lot of time in the fourth, and people talk about wanting to go to the fifth. I don't necessarily believe in a 5D, a ascension, because I think 5D has a lot to do with 5G. I think you don't want to limit yourself to 5D. You want to work with at least 12D and then go beyond that, right? So you're not limited to, a cut-off glass ceiling. But I was having these memories. I was eating these strawberries, and I could see myself as part of the body of Tiamat, and all this information was coming, and I was seeing these planets as, beings of consciousness. So that was interesting. That makes me think of something you brought up, made me want to go there, as far as your senses, because it does change your senses when you start to feel something like that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it does.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for sharing, because, so many people do exactly what you're doing. They're just driving here, driving there, stopping to go fishing or whatever it is. finding a patch of strawberries like you did, and all of a sudden something triggers, whether it's a smell in the air or a texture that your hand brushed against, or maybe it was like a ghosty, a spirit that came to you and somehow welcomed you, and you were open to receiving, and so you received. I don't overthink it. I find it fascinating. And I was wondering, like, so how do you even clear a grid? Like, take us through a scenario. There you are driving in your truck, you're minding your own business, going from point A to point B, and then, like, do your spidey senses just kind of start going off? Like, ooh, these ley lines are, there's something weird, they're crooked, they're
I
maybe
think
toxic, poisonous. Maybe you sense death because you seem to have a connection with death. You know that energy. The reason I'm asking this is because when I was a teacher in British Columbia, I taught in the Lower Mainland, which is like the Vancouver area, about an hour or 2 hours from there. And I would go to Kamloops to go to our union meetings every summer. And I did this for years. And then one September, we were just devastated because there was this big giant pit of deceased Indigenous children's bodies that have been there, not for 500 years, but for like just maybe a few decades, directly linked to residential schools. And so it's like, we all just kind of took a step back because it's like, oh my God, how many times have I driven here and I had like no idea, right? Zero idea. And somebody like yourself probably driving through there and going, something interesting is going on. Like, take us through a scenario. Like, what happens? What do you feel? What do you do? Tell us all about it.
well, but when I was on the road, I was learning this, so I didn't have a lot of awareness of what was going on. I know I'd end up tired, I'd end up moody. Sometimes I'd be very emotional. I'd cry. Sometimes I'd throw fits because I couldn't control my emotions, where I feel like I'm those titans. But the way to clear it was a lot of baths in salt water, Epsom salts, essential oils, flower essences, and just trying to be still and meditate and things like that, sometimes run light through my body or sound or any of those things. But I wasn't even so aware of exactly until I went to Manassas. That was a game changer because I was again at a Barnes and Noble, because we used to stop at a lot of Barnes and Noble because there was Starbucks there. So my husband and I needed a break. We went into Barnes and Noble, we got ourselves a coffee. We said, we want to take a hike. We start walking, say, oh, this is beautiful land behind this Barnes and Noble, and this is in Virginia. And I'd like to go back to this place because I haven't been there since. So we're taking a walk behind there, and we find ourselves in the national park. And I'm standing on this one spot, and I said, oh my God, I feel there's dead bodies here. Dead bodies. And then I start to see soldiers walking around, like red coats and blue coats, and different soldiers walking around. And then when we go back to the Barnes and Noble, my husband finds this book and opens to the very page of what's called the Battle of Manassas. That's when I became aware of how I can pick things up in the land, because I mean, I would pick things up, but I didn't have validation what I was doing. That was my validation. So then this brings me to later on when I went to Puerto Rico. There was a spot that I went to when took a hike. We went to Old San Juan. First, we went to the beach part of the island for a few days, but then we went to Old San Juan, and we went to a place called San Cristobal. And if you know the story, Christopher Columbus went there. This also brings me to another story that I want to tell you about entities. So remind me about Ponce de Leon's body being on display. Remember that. So, because I got to circle back around and talk about this. So there was one spot I was taking a walk, and I stood in a graveyard in this church, and I heard this thing finally somebody is here. We have an advocate, because we've willingly, the whole story was that they had willingly bound themselves to the land because they loved it so much, until somebody like me that was an advocate for the land was able to witness and validate them so they could move on. And this became a theme of, I go to places and this happens, where they're waiting for somebody like me. It doesn't have to be me. Whatever I hold, whatever I'm connected to, as far as those pieces of beings that are in stasis in the land, as a group collective soul, they decide they can move on. So that happened. And then there was a time that I was in a church, and there's a checkerboard floor there, and this was nasty. And they were saying there, we want them. We want the men that you have with you. 3 guys, my husband and 2 others, the tour leader and this, like, no, you can't have them. We want them. And I'm like, you know what? We have to go. We have to get out of this church. This is dirty. This is dark. This can't be cleared. This is a stronghold. It can't be cleared, which takes me to this. Ponce de Leon's body was on display. I happened to see that. Now, when I had come home, there was a time later, he wanted me to help him move on, and I wasn't even sure if it was him. He's like, will you help me move on? And it's like, it wasn't a good time for me. I was exhausted, and I said no. And it never came back again. But so it was one of those things.
It's really fascinating, and I wonder if like the spirit respected you, no means no, or maybe it was able to find somebody else, and had it not found somebody else, would it still be coming to you? But you get the sense it like respected you, and I wonder, do you ever feel like a sense of allyship? Like maybe there's spirits out there that are helping you um, to do clearings or getting your attention? Because you mentioned earlier, like, if you're needed somewhere or not needed somewhere, it sounded like there was some kind of redirection. But really, in these early stages, all you could really do is take it day by day and figure it out and kind of piece it together. But at some point, you were able to establish a rhythm, a way of knowing where you recognize now, oh, okay, there's some kind of grid work that needs attention. And so, do you now carry with you like a special shamanic toolkit, or like do you always have flora water with you or crystals? No,
I don't.
you
I
just
have some
use.
today because I have them. I wanted to bring them with me, and because I'm talking about grid work, this is the one that would always go in the truck with my husband when we worked for UPS Freight. It's a smoky quartz called Robin Horace, and also Joshua Shapiro just happened to be on Rob's show the other day, and they call him the Crystal Skull Man. So I have this one. And there's another one upstairs I didn't bring, and I'm going to show that later tonight. And this one is called Alabastet. It's an alabaster. This definitely connects to the Magi Grail codes and like the Mary Magdalene pieces, because she carried the alabaster egg, which is, I have this. So this is something you can like sort of run on your body as your meridians, like you could trace your meridians like this, like you can go, or people pat themselves, but go down and up and just rub around, and this absorbs it, and then run this underwater. And my friend the other day just gave me this cute Oregon pyramid. See the little pyramid? And here's a meteorite. Oh, and then this is stones. Stone. I'm looking forward to my stone reading. This came from a place that has an observatory in the Spruce Pine area. It's mica.
Mica is really powerful too. I went through a little phase where I was, because of my gemstones, I'm like, I better know what these are called, and I found myself very overwhelmed. Those are really beautiful skulls. It's hard not to collect them all, right? For me, it started with well, pyrite, when I was a kid, I was like, this isn't pyrite. It's got to be real gold. I know it, it was just pyrite. And, like most kids having a rock collection, but these are like next level, right? And especially the skulls. And when you can attach a storyline to it, a history like Mary Magdalene, and start tapping into that energy and working with these ancient symbols, often a lot of symbols which were intimidating because it threw off the power and the control, and some of those symbols were discouraged. And I think especially the skull, any kind of skull, was scary just a few hundred years ago, even before TV, just like maybe 150-ish, well, whenever TV came out. But like, those were things that people just did not see every day, and the only skull close to ours is the ape monkey skull. So when we start seeing ET skulls, whether those ETs are from this planet or of this planet, it's a whole separate conversation. It just really got me thinking, because the Mary Magdalene one, it seemed like this part of the skull was very distinctively carved. It just made me I don't know what I was thinking, but it just made me think things like evolution and how our very bodies are changing, and just how you're like a grid worker and the land is changing, your body, the land changing, the energy in and around you changing, because it's always alchemizing, and carrying forward the high quality items and the eagle condor medicine that comes with this, because it's not just carrying the knowledge, but applying the knowledge and sharing the knowledge. And so this is all part of the story medicine, because how many other folks out there, especially children, who might be catching an episode of Story Species Story Medicine, they listen to this and they're like, me too, I'm like that girl Missy Hill, me too, I'm having those experiences. And now they know there's somebody out there that's just like them, who's going through these experiences. And to have the humility and the honesty and the integrity like you do to share this, just so naturally, and the fluidity that you share it too, is really inspiring, because I can't say it enough. Like, my audience, we get made fun of. My own friends, they're never going to like or subscribe to my stuff because it might impact their employment opportunities, and they have children that they need to feed and clothe and house. And so it's just such a joy and celebration for me personally to be speaking freely like this. Like, even just like when I was like, I don't teach anymore. I'm still certified. I pay my fee every year, but like, I couldn't talk like this in the classroom. And my employer very well could have a problem with me if I was still teaching. We're allowed to talk about spirituality and stuff like that, but then it's cancel culture comes into effect. People start talking, something's weird about that teacher when it comes to children, and they don't want children to be around somebody weird, when in truth, the weird is the new normal. It's always been the new normal. There's nothing strange about high strangeness other than the fact we think it's strange. Paranormal is very normal. The supernatural is very natural. And arguably, I don't remember who said this, but we are the old people. We are the sane people. We're the new people. We're just wise and well every time we alchemize, right? And so all of these connections really very well could be bits and pieces of yourself from other worlds communicating to you, and different past lives, even the two cats. And then you've got the two cats as their own separate, like, individuals having their own lives, their own spirit guides and whatnot. So there's like this whole networking community that's connected to you. And then that community branches out, because now we're chit-chatting and sharing story medicine, right? And so for me, this is just really, really big time. Yeah, really big time. I was kind of going off there, but I also tend to throw a lot at my guests, and just let me know if anytime you feel overwhelmed or you need to clarify something. But that was really powerful. And oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you brought up the normal and the paranormal, it makes me think of my opening show, and I might want it because I'm thinking of that, what I used to say, because I wasn't allowed to play bumper music, which I would have. I actually had somebody design a song for me, which was Kennedy's speech about the very word secrecy and a free and open society and all that. It was set to like this rap theme, but I always used to say, "Welcome to Galactic Earth Fusion, the show that discusses the normal, the paranormal, the natural, the supernatural, the organic to know the inorganic, the weird, the wonderful, all things outrageous, strange, upbeat, and cutting edge." Broadcasting to you from the Blue Ridge Mountains of Western North Carolina, land of the sky. I'm your host, Missy Hill. And I used to add some other things to that, but that was the gist of it.
So there you go. We've got synchronicity going on with that, because I always say those three little liners. That's my thing. I didn't invent them. I picked them up somewhere here and there. So that's really cool too. That's really cool. I always have so much to say. Do you ever work with like grid paper or an old checkerboard or something like that at home when you're doing grid work? Or is it just all kind of like, do you just kind of make it up as you go along? Or have you ever buddied up with somebody to tag team clearing the land?
Yeah, and sometimes what I would do is put things on a map. Like I said, I would have a map of a place, and I would put crystals, or I'd do different things like that. But I can sort of see it, but I'm not as great as others that are out there, influencers on YouTube that do, the scribbles maps and things like that. You know what I mean? Where they can actually, go in and I see it in my mind, and I have to backpedal to learn some of that technology. Like if I want to do host remote missions online and show a map, I mean, what I do with my phone is I'm taking screenshots of maps, and I'm putting them together. So I'll just Google a place, I screenshot, I'll find out what the coordinates are, and that's kind of how I do it. And I can see it in my mind, because it doesn't have to be perfect in my mind for what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's not, "Hey, Julia, thank you." Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a make it up as I go kind of thing. Yeah. And then I've connected with others in other communities who are hosting these things. But, like I don't consider myself an influencer at all. Like I said, most of the time I've been dark. It's just lately I feel I have to get the stuff out, because there's something about me speaking it and getting it out and giving it away. And it does bring a few clients, but for me, it's not about money. It never has. If I make some money, that's great. I'd love to make some, but it's not about that. I have to get it out, because when I get it out, more comes. Because if you don't get it out and you hang on to even your own information, it'll make you sick. You have to move energy. And this is a way of moving the energy for me. I will also do it through drumming. I will do it through chanting. I will do it through visualization. I'll do it through playing guitar. When I'm really, focused, I can do it through art. I mean, I'm not an artist, but I can be. And I've made art pieces. I was getting ready for a Bigfoot festival that didn't happen for me, and I made all this Bigfoot art. And I should have brought it to show. Today I'm just wearing this. A friend gave me. It's a cat with wings. It's like sort of Halloweenish, and it was left up here in the fall. And I said, "Oh, this will be good for
Really
today.
nice.
This will be good for today." But and then there was a white squirrel festival I was going to be a part of, and I made all this white squirrel art, because in Transylvania County of Brevard, there's a little thing called the White Squirrel Festival, because these squirrels escaped from the circus about 200 years ago. So they're adorable. Just look up white squirrels. Well, we never did that. My friend that I was going to do it with wasn't feeling good, and it didn't happen. It's good we didn't do it, because a tornado went through there when the festival was supposed to happen. So here we go, circling back around to this whole stuff with weather again.
And when you were speaking, I was picturing like the wind, like in a gentle way, sweeping this way. Guidance, no, don't go, like a communication that you didn't know you were in communication with at that time. There's other reasons you don't understand. There's a storm coming, but we don't know how to communicate. Just don't come to this festival. And I didn't know that about white squirrels. I just heard that white squirrels were rare, and they were often confused with albino squirrels, but they're not albino squirrels, they're white squirrels. And I think that's really fascinating, because, it makes me think about the story of Frankenstein. I do believe in all kinds of Frankenstein stories and illegal experiments and things getting escaping and also intentionally being released as part of an experiment, and what happens to the ecosystem. How do we respond? How do we respond to the white squirrel? Well, how would we respond to white elephants or ETs? Like, just all this, like, form of play, if you will, that doesn't exactly feel like play because it's traumatic and there's ethical concerns that come with it. I was going to ask, have you ever taught grid work? Would you consider teaching grid work?
Yeah, I've taught it, not online, but yeah, at small workshop festival type things. And even before that, I used to do like movement classes. So I'd even have it sort of in conjunction with that, even before I knew I was doing it. But yes, yes. And then taking people on tour, I get into slightly, because I've done. So I will talk about it more through like giving a tour. Okay, so the tour that I used to do was called the Biltmore Village Mystery Tour, which is part of Haunted Asheville in Western North Carolina in the Biltmore. It's not connected to the Biltmore estate, George Vanderbilt, but it's in a place called the Biltmore Village. Now, that has since come to a halt and will probably be no more, at least in the fashion that it was, because Hurricane Helene has changed the landscape to a degree, and even on a personal and spiritual level, I feel that the stories aren't completely 100% valid, because the stories that I used to tell about the ghosts and things, I feel that has been a shift, because now there's been so many people that lost their lives from Helene. So now, if I ever did a tour again, it would be a once in a while thing, and it would be called The Aftermath of Helene, where I could combine the old stories of how, George Vanderbilt actually owned all that land, and, the fact that there was a Nazi there named William Dudley Pelley, all these things, but also talk about the surrounding areas, how in the Swananoa River that flooded, and the French Broad, people actually, because of the homes that were close to the river, people actually died in the river, and a lot of people still to this day have not been found. So yeah, so I'm not doing that anymore. And I used to, at times, there's a place called the Brown Mountain Lights in Western North Carolina that's in the Linville Gorge area. It's this the mountain, because it works as a capacitor, where running water on top of a bed of quartz in a cave system actually makes this type of a ball lightning that I feel is a battery source for interdimensionals, and even the military is highly interested in it. And I have some of this footage that was actually used on Weird or What by William Shatner, where you can see, and that changed my whole belief in what UFOs were at the time, because I saw that UFOs were not a nuts and bolts type of thing. This was a plasma type of a craft that would sort of just take form and shape for a while, and then it would dissolve into the mountain.
So fascinating. William Shatner, growing up, there wasn't a lot of TV shows on aliens. And when there was, it was too scary for me. And people would say things like that to me, like, you're watching too much Weird or What? You're watching too much Ancient Aliens. And I'm like, whoa, what? Wait, there's a show on that? Like, I didn't even know. And things that I didn't know how to describe or even talk about, because like you just described, I didn't know about the word plasma. I didn't know what a plasma body was, but it was interesting, yeah, because a lot of these spaceships didn't have nuts or bolts, and this business of shape shifting, like we talked about earlier, and the land, and just even the water cycle, like ice, fog, snow, all of that is basically the same, just rearranged differently. And there's a lot of theories out there, but one theory is that, like, you and I could merge and become a spacecraft. And then when we land, you're you again and I'm me again. And if I needed to, I can be my own spacecraft and you can be your own spacecraft, or we can come together. It's kind of like a recipe, if it matches or not. And it was good synchronicity when you brought up the water, because I wrote a note here, water, because you're connected to the land, but I was going to ask about sailors and that kind of stuff. So I get like you pick up on stuff. People who are by the shoreline, there's a hurricane, the land all crumbles. But what about like sailors who are out at sea and they die because whatever
the
reason?
siren energy, this. Okay, so this is
Siren.
interesting. My husband and his son and his daughters, and I might have told this on some shows, but not many. My husband's son and his daughter's boyfriend at the time, they were, this was on Singer Island Beach of Florida, okay, because his kids lived there. And they saw a woman in white that was like dancing, and this was at night, on the beach, but she wasn't touching the ground. She was sort of hovering. And she tried to like pick them up, where she was like interested and flirting with all of them. And I would pick up this weird, like in my dreams, this siren, you know, succubus. I mean, there's like succubus, incubus, this weird kind of energy of something wanting to like take you over, merge with you, and you knew it was not a positive thing in the dream state. But when the hurricane that happened, I don't remember if it was Debbie, was where there was a tornado in South Carolina. I happened to be in North Carolina when my husband experienced Debbie, and it took the roof off the local bar and grill that's on the beach called Coots. It was some other storm that I can't remember which one, but I heard. Oh, I think it was after Helene. I think it was Milton that was hitting Florida. I heard work with the siren energy. They're not bad. They're not all bad. You can work with this energy, the sound of the siren, to neutralize what is going on in Stargate 2, which is now called the Gulf of America. Used to be the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, I'd still call it the Gulf of America, Mexico. A man named James Tiburon actually talked about how there was pyramids that were buried somewhere in the Gulf, like off the coast of Texas or something like that. And this work originally, a lot of people are talking about it now, but originally the one that I'm most familiar with, the whole thing on the Stargates, originally was Ashyan Adim, which came from like, who goes by Iyasha now, which came from Voyagers 1 and 2. And since she's talked about how the Stargate 2 area of Siesta Key is actually dark flowering, according to the Alhambra passages, which is like this plasmas coming from the internal eternal realms. This is the newer work. What I got when I was actually down in Palm Beach last year is that Stargate 2 had been temporarily moved, for good or for bad, to Mar-a-Lago. And I actually saw the beings, this team that's come in, and who they were. I'm not going to get into white hats, black hats, any of this stuff. I really don't like politics. But what I saw is they were from Atlantis, and they were Luciferian as opposed to the satanic version. I don't even like to say some of these words sometimes, but you have to describe it somehow. So that's kind of what I got. And then this whole thing with like Greenland, I was seeing the whole. Okay, and now let me bring into this. I do a lot. I've been doing cruises because since the COVID crap, okay, before that I did these cruises for Divine Travels, and I used to do night vision. I did the conspiracy cruise. Laura Eisenhower was on that one, and a bunch of well-known people. And I did like 2 on the East Coast, leaving from Fort Lauderdale, and 2, I think it was, on the West Coast, leaving from Los Angeles, okay, and going to uh, Puerto Vallarta and Cabo and Mazatlan, down there. But I've been doing some cruises out of Charleston, South Carolina when I'm there. It was on Carnival just for my own, going to the Bahamas, and I was seeing how these extension arms of the cathedral networks in the Bahamas, talking about the waters and feeling the plasma waters, and feeling like when you're in this water, this high frequency water, where you're actually in a different timeline, where I'd be in the water and I'd be looking at the sky while I'm in the water bathing, the water would start to turn shiny metallic and the sky would turn pink. It would flash on and on pink for just a few seconds. That's what I'd be seeing with my eyes. I mean, I would wear sunglasses, but that's what I would see when I'm actually in the water swimming. Okay. This last cruise that I did, we went on the Margaritaville cruise out of Palm Beach, which as a crow flies, it's about a couple minutes from Mar-a-Lago, and you can actually see the backside of it when you leave the port and you go out into the ocean. Well, we went to a place called the East Fort Martello Museum, which was a Union stronghold during the Civil War instead of being Confederate. And there's a doll there named Robert the Haunted Doll that was the doll of Eugene Otto, which now is 122 years old. And even Robert he's like a guardian of this place at the end of the Keys, Key West, where the Bermuda Triangle energies of Stargate 3 and the energies of Stargate 2 dissolve into each other. And I was kind of seeing a point beyond the Stargates where it was just the water, where there was no Stargates. There was just this water. And this Robert was kind of showing me this holographically because he was more than a doll, because he was holding the projections and all the feelings of all the people that saw him since the early 1900s, like I was seeing the rise of the Industrial Revolution and World War I and World War II. And that was before all this stuff happened with the Strait of Hormuz and all the crap we're going through now. And he was like showing me even sadness about kids don't play with toys anymore. They do this all day. But anyway, this is a little replica of Robert. And I brought him with me, because that's how he's dressed. So I didn't get that he was bad, even though people think, oh, he's haunted, he's bad, and all this bad luck around him. I mean, I took a picture of him at a distance with myself. I probably could have gotten one closer, but he showed me that he amplifies the beliefs of what a person believes. So if you believe something's bad, it's going to be bad because of your belief. But was kind of like a placement holder and a guardian of that place in Key West at the point of where the Gulf of America, Mexico, and the Atlantic Ocean come together.
All I can say is wow, 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 wow. That's amazing. Like, I'm with you. I don't like politics. The good guy and the bad guy, they're the same guy. Ultimately, nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, I'm going to be the bad guy today. Like, no, like everybody at heart believes, and I do believe in mental illness, that some people are really struggling with mental illness and they're like evil, if you will, but it's because there's so much confusion, right?
Especially lately.
You have a phenomenal memory recall. What was that?
Especially lately.
What did you say? Absolutely.
A lot of mental illness lately. I'm seeing it. People are coming on.
Yes. Oh yeah. Like back when I graduated from doing my teacher college thing, we were told by 2020 mental health and wellness would be the number one cost. And that was before, COVID, we even heard about that or whatever. It's just really concerning, really, really concerning. And that's a separate conversation too. Like, I mean, we could easily talk all day, right? Like you have to come back on here at least 500 times over. You have a phenomenal memory recall because you remember dates, you remember the locations and times, and I'm just taking it all in, right?
Sometimes I forget.
Sometimes, but yeah, I'm pretty good. And I can see you writing an entire series, multiple series, because like you can write a series just about you and your life unfoldings, but then you've also got like your UFO tours and whatnot and the stories within those stories and just reflecting on interesting things. And when you were talking about UFOs and plasmas, at some point I wrote down dissolve, sea and sky equal one. And it just like, I can't explain it, but it was like I was on your wavelength when you were explaining that, because I could picture like, I don't even know, like folks from sea, folks from the sky, folks from outer space, if you will, but then they there's like a coming together, but really there always was a together. And it's like an inverse or something, like an opposite world. And we want to separate the sea, we want to separate the sky. And at the literal level of snake that we exist on, well, yeah, the sea and the sky are separate, but you know what? Through that mistiness and whatnot, they at some point actually do come together.
Yeah.
Just like planet Earth isn't really separate from outer space, there's those spaces within spaces that connect us through this chain reaction, part of the greater adhesion cohesion that we all belong to. I also wrote down the word colonization when you were talking, because yeah, I get it. Like the land, it breaks up, the land, the ley lines shift and whatnot because things like hurricanes, also just things like, the tide coming in and wearing and tearing on the rocks, that kind of stuff. But also us, the people, the Homo sapiens sapien in particular, we colonize the land. Like we plant trees. We don't want trees there. We want them over there. So we clear cut and, make a neighborhood. There's the pros and cons to that, right? Pollution. But but then I also wrote down the word Bluetooth, because it's like somehow you're a filter in all of this. You're like a Bluetooth spooky action kind of effect going on. I don't know the proper vocabulary, but like all the land, all the earth, sea, sky, elementals, doesn't matter, fire, your Bluetooth only goes so far, that it's almost like there's a part of you that can continue on farther. And those cats are a part of that energy. And because if you're connected to planet Earth on a literal level, well, if a piece of planet Earth were to break off, which it always does, well, I would feel like you're part of that piece of Earth floating around, possibly smashing into a meteorite, and now you're part of that piece of land too. And so there's like all these little pieces of you that are out there. And I don't have a science background to talk about the plasma body, but like, I'm just looking at my chicken scratch notes here, but like I was making connections when you were talking.
I was hearing of Pangea, during the whole COVID mess, seeing this whole thing about Pangea. And when you brought up the firmament of how the sky and the water are connected, in the Egyptian mystery schools. And if you look at their artwork, you'll see, and even Peter Pan comes from this, the ship in the sky, right? I'll tell you, when there was a time the government was shut down here in the United States last year for, I don't know, I think it was a good month. And I remember people, a friend of mine even asked, what's the reason for none of the geoengineering, the spraying? They said, there's no money for that. Well, when they weren't spraying and the sky was clear, there was something about the sky that was changing. And interestingly enough, this was around the time of the whole 3-eye atlas thing. I felt like there was times with the clouds, going back to the clouds again, seeing organic cruciferous or whatever those certain, I can't remember the names of the clouds. There's different names, but I was thinking, boy, I can't tell the difference between the waters above and where there was like no differentiation, if I'm saying this right. I felt like it was dissolving into each other, where I was with the sky. There was something different where I could almost walk off into the distance. And in my meditations, that's one thing I've worked on creating, is these rainbow bridges. In the Nordic tradition, they call it the Bifrost. Okay, and you've seen it in Marvel Comics, where it's this bridge that's made of this frost. And then there's something called the hoarfrost here. So sometimes it's not cold enough for it to snow or whatever, but when it gets below freezing, there'll be this frost on the trees. They call it the hoarfrost. Well, the Bifrost, I see these arcs of like rainbow bridges in locations. So being this Titan and being above, to be able to use this as a way to jump from one space to another. And I noticed sometimes that's even affected my driving, where my trip from North Carolina to South Carolina is easier and it doesn't take as much time to drive. I can almost jump from one spot to another. I mean, it's still, I feel it, but at times, you know, when I'm really working with that, I can control the time and the changing of how to drive that sequence, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. It's like there's a buoyancy, and buoyancy is like a water kind of language. And then it was interesting when you said drive, because literally you're driving, that you're talking about the drive and the passion, that these are all the metaphors and puns that kind of intertwine together and dissolve. It's like earlier when I was saying shape shifting, I didn't know how to express it, but maybe dissolve is like a better word. Um, I love playing around with ideas for me personally. When you said ship in the sky, I thought about Indigenous folks because there's a lot of theories and stories and whatnot about a clamshell or a seashell that came from the sky. And basically, that was like an ET ship, but it was described as a seashell or a clamshell because how else would people, like, you know, we didn't have technology back in those ancient times, right? And then I also thought about the Irish Celtic folks. I don't know my history like you do, but there's stories about the Tutor Dodanen and coming here. Yeah, and this business of I am, and that's what they do. I am the sea, I am the land. And um, did they come on a ship, or were they the ship that dissolved, transformed, shapeshifted into the person? You know, and it makes me think about all kinds of things, like people who see deer, but then they take a second look and, oh, it's just people. No, those were some kind of ET folk or whatever that shapeshifted as deer to kind of blend in, and, you know, like just stuff like that, that again, you think you're losing your mind, you challenge yourself, but you know, all of this comes together. I feel like I could talk to you all day long. It's been almost 2 hours.
Venus,
Oh,
what I get.
go ahead.
With the clamshell, Venus. Being
Venus.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Maybe I was told that I don't have a good memory recall. I'm very open about that.
You know that arm that's in the clamshell, that woman with her hair, and she's standing with the shell behind her, that's supposed to be Venus. That famous painting.
Okay, interesting. Here in Canada, we've got Bill Reid. He's a really famous Indigenous worker and does all kinds of amazing paintings. So I can't think of that image that you're speaking of offhand, but it's interesting. And then it's also interesting because you've got like the Andean medicine wheel and those folks, and basically it doesn't matter what part of the world you come from, even if you come from a different part of this galaxy, we're all telling the same story. We're just calling it different things. You know, so I find that really fascinating. And James Whittakis is here too, tuning in with us live. And Jason snorkeling in Hawaii. Oh, nice.
I know.
Lucky. I didn't know that. I knew he was going out of town, but what a lucky guy. Well, we definitely have to have you back.
Truths thing, yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of books to write, and you know what? It happened to me. I think it happens to everybody. You're going to sit down to write your one book. It's going to be this big, like too big. So your one book, I guarantee you're going to have to break it up into multiple books, and you're going to default to having a series. So you just write your happy heart out, and I have like a very good feeling that it'll just come together. It'll organize itself. So don't, like, if you're like documenting a story and you're like, oh, I'm off task right now, this story is like another story, just keep telling it because everything happens at once, right? So like when I published my first 4 books, it sounds like this big accomplishment, right? Like, oh my God, she published 4 books at once. It was one book, but honestly, who's going to buy a book that's big? You know, it's too big to carry around, right? And so breaking it up into like a 200-300 page book, even a 100-page book, is a lot more appealing for people. It's a lot more manageable, encouraging to read. You've got an easy 500 books to write, just about, you know, like plus you're still living your life and carrying on. So you're going to have more books to write. And hopefully this will be part of your book, coming on and being a guest. And
You can be a
Anchor
public
Haven's
figure.
reiterating how awesome you are.
I
And
want
James is
public
saying
figures.
yes.
I want public figures in my book. Did you hear me?
I didn't hear you.
I said I want public figures in my book. Yes. Public figures will make an appearance in the book. Yeah.
And all of my content is merging together. So, like, I'm making movies. I'm not there yet. I am getting there. Like, hosting the conferences was step one. We're going to have the second one, Summer Daze. I've got my books. I've got my Oracle. Everything's merging together. And so, Jason and I are actually going to be having a meeting when he comes back from Hawaii, because he has a background and just trying to. I don't know where to start. Like you, I've got so many stories to tell. Where do I start, right? But you got to start somewhere. Who cares where it is, right? And so I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I want to pull up your special little thing here. I love this picture of you. It's really earthy. And when I was creating this here, I was making like the Missy Hill first time guest. It was green, then it was pink, then it was blue. And I went for the green because I thought it just really brought out this green in the right corner. And it just, I don't know, neutralized your face. And I just love it. Yeah, life's about the little things, right? So the next time we see you will be for Summer Daze. That's going to be, when is it going to be? Saturday, June 13th. And I forget offhand, but we've got you plugged in the schedule, which at the end of the month, I'm going to release the official schedule, who's presenting at what time. And we had phenomenal feedback from the first one, Promise of Spring. So those of you who are tuning in, get your tickets, support the conference, support Story Species, Story Medicine, because there's a lot of Dragon Dreamers out there who they feel alone. They don't have anybody to talk to. Some of them feel like they're losing their mind. And a lot of them are shut down and criticized, can't find a job because of this exact kind of stuff. And so earlier when we were talking about our voice and our energy level and taking that for granted, like a lot of us take community for granted, especially since COVID-19, communities have really shrunk. And so I'm really striving for community as well. And you know what? With great change comes great uncertainty, and it can absolutely be scary. But you know what? Feel that fear, move forward anyways, and embrace the change because it's part of the alchemy. And knowing just how you kicked it off with that tower keeps coming up in my mind is so important, because each of us is a tower that's being built and falling, and carrying the high quality items forward and having the ability to let go and connecting with people like Missy who have the power, the knowledge, and the intuitive nature to just do what they do on an energetic level. Because something I didn't say out loud, I have a note here, is so you pick up all these vibes of the land, but again, we're the land. So if I was standing beside you physically and I was having like a really bad day, or even just right now, maybe you would energetically just pick up on that. And it's like, wait a minute, it's actually not the tree over there, it's a Homo sapien sapien, or maybe it's the land that's the biological one known as the dog or the sheep over there. And so you just really fall down the rabbit hole with this. And you make me think about dreams, and you make me feel excited about dreams, because in the dream world, the land is a neutral party. So same like under hypnosis, you know, you can talk to the kitchen table and get advice. Who knew? You could talk to the tree to get advice, the wall. So I feel like somebody like you, if not already, because you have a shamanic quality about you, like your dream world, I bet, is really wild. And there's just like so much for you to offer that like I don't even really know you, and I'm picking up on all this stuff, right? And just I don't know, like how does it make you feel for somebody like me who doesn't even really know you to make comments? Like is just, are you like, yeah, I resonate with that? Are you like, I don't know, this feels kind of weird?
Yeah, my feeling is like with the land, the earth is holographic, And I look at it as we're the problem on this earth. I think if we weren't here, the earth would be fine to a degree, if that makes any sense, because this is supposedly a school, and she has done this for us. It's like she's given of herself for us to a degree. Not that it's not evolving her or teaching her or something, but because there is no time, actually past, present, and future are all happening in the now. I just kind of get that, though. I sort of see with what's going on with us and our emotions and things, that there's a hijacking that's occurred, and there's almost like we're the fleas on this planet. I mean, as far as the black goo, the negativity. I'm not saying the earth doesn't have any, but I kind of get the earth would be fine if, you know what I mean? Does that make any sense? That it's like the
Yeah,
earth
that makes
really
sense to me.
yeah, the earth is here.
We're a big problem, the Homo sapiens sapien. We're a huge problem for this earth, I mean,
We don't belong, because we really don't belong here. I mean, look at animals. They have fur and we don't. We can't survive. We really can't survive on this earth. We're not designed for here. We were genetically modified and put here. That's a whole other can of.
yes.
One thing I do want to address before we go is this thing about dissolving into each other, which I've actually gotten that term from doing a lot of yoga nidra. But having dreams and hearing whistleblowers say about you're part of the spaceship, where you get in and it reads your thoughts and you can touch things and you become a part of it. I look at it as like, if you watch, I love aquariums. I absolutely love aquariums. And if you look at the manta ray and how they swim, it's kind of like an underwater USO, right? They're sort of like that. It's sort of like that. And there's whistleblowers that have actually come forth and say, yes, some of this technology is this way, where you get in and the ship recognizes you, where you become part of the ship. That's the feeling I started to have with different types of ships that happen at Brown Mountain.
I gotta have you back like at least 500
I'd love
times,
to do it.
because
Yeah.
you opened up so many cans of worms, right? See, for what it's worth, I know it's like past the 2 hour mark, but you know what, because I've heard stories, it hasn't happened to me, but I've heard stories where people find a piece of metal or whatever, and all of a sudden they're at one with it. And it's like, well, I have a theory that maybe that was a broken piece of a spaceship, something exactly like you described. And now here I am in this life, and I touch it and it recognizes my energy, but I have absolutely no memory. It's from a past life.
Oh my God.
Things have a way of finding things. It's part of this Bluetooth spooky action network that we all belong to. And I can't explain it, but it's
Spooky
like
action.
a ball rolling.
Yeah, they call it spooky at a distance, and I know Spooky 2 has something to do with that, with Rife technology. Okay, one more story, because we are so in sync. It's like you and I are telepathing on another level. So in 2009, my friend Joshua P. Warren, who's a regular guest on George Norrie Coast to Coast and has his own podcast called Stranger Things, I think. No, Strange Things. Not the show Stranger Things, but Strange Things. He hosted a thing at AB Tech, which is a local community college, where he had this UFO debris. And actually, I brought this up the other day because this is how I met Joshua Shapiro, who was just on Rob's show the other day, and a bunch of other people was being at this event. Well, he had this material that he showed, and he put it like on a Van de Graaff machine to show how it behaved. It was like, it wasn't metal, and it wasn't plastic, and it wasn't paper, yet it was slick, and it almost felt like it had this mica quality. But there was something about touching this that I felt, I don't know. I don't know if it was a placebo, but it took me somewhere of, I don't know. It did open something. What is the comments? I'm seeing a comment. If there's any questions, I would love that before
Don't worry. James was saying, even what you think you're capable of at the very fringes of what you're thinking is nowhere near what you're actually capable of.
my God.
Yeah, we never really know our capacity. We don't.
Yeah.
That's a good point, James.
Yeah. Oh, so that was shifting too. I've got so many. I'm glad this will have.
Yes.
I have to learn how to use the transcript now. I have to learn it.
Know what time you're going on Rob's show, but this is going to be on my playlist. You have the link. It's the same link for the replay.
Yep.
And the transcript, you'll find it. It's there. You might just have to like you know where the comments are. Just scroll around. If you can't find it on your cell phone, you should be able to. But sometimes the way information's presented, it'll look different on your PC. So just check it out. Check it out. You know. And if Rob is using Zoom or recording, ask him if he can send you a copy, because if you record on Zoom, I wouldn't rely on it, because it's happened to me where I record myself, but then the transcript, it's like, oh, the transcript is insufficient. And it's like, what, but it's in a general way, like it usually sends you an email of the summary. So it never hurts to ask. And a lot of people, they don't even realize Zoom offers that. I didn't know actually until I was just checking my email one day. I was farting around on Zoom and I'm like, why do I have all these Zooms in my email? And it was because every meeting it was sending me an email. So anyways, it sounds like you've got some learning curves, but I don't think it's anything that is going to stop you. You're going to just plow right over those learning curves, get those books published. And I'll be right here on Story Species Story Medicine to soak up all your medicine from all your books. And really looking forward to having you on June, whatever it is. I'm brain farting it out now. June 13th for Summer Daze. Any final thoughts, Missy, before I move you from the stage? There's your email link. I put that up. I'll put it up for a final time. Reach out to Missy, everybody. She's got books to write. If you want to take Missy under your wing and actually help her, do it for her. You know, some people, they love to type away. You know, maybe there's somebody out there who wants to just, take Missy and interview her. I would. I don't have the time, unfortunately, but maybe there's somebody out there who does. Reach out to Missy. There's her email there on the bottom. Missy, any final words before I remove you from the stage?
The Hill Night Vision, HILNITEVISION @gmail.com. hillnitevision@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, X, even though I don't do anything on X at all, but just with the links. And then I have my own YouTube, which is Missy Hill at Galactic Earth Fusion, but I don't have any videos up there except for tiny shorts. Maybe I need to start doing more of those. I don't know, but I have this thing of I don't like to talk to myself, because then I might answer myself and I might be going crazy. But I'll talk to my cat. So.
Well, you know what? You pull up your cell phone and you make a 1-minute video talking to your cat, upload that on YouTube. Boom, there's your short, right? Here's your short right there. So, Missy, we're over the 2-hour mark. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story medicine. I soaked up every moment of it, and I look forward to soaking more with you. Thank you so much for being on my show. And have a good time with Rob tonight, talking about whatever you talk about, and ask him about transcripts. And if anybody out there wants to connect with Missy, definitely connect with her, because she's got great medicine to share. Thank you so much, Missy, for being a guest on Story Species. All right, everybody. Missy Hill, there you go. I'm curious if anybody else out there driving in a truck or a car, walking down the street, spidey senses are tingling. Next thing you know, you become a grid worker, right? And interesting information about cats, his business of dissolving, shape-shifting, myself personally, not getting hung up on categories. Then it'd be interesting to know in the comments, even in 20 years from now. I love receiving the comments. Let us know how you relate to Missy. Let us know how this story medicine helped you today. Share this story medicine. We're a story species. We heal with the earth. You and I, we're the earth. We're walking, talking trees. We're beaver dams in our own rights. I always say that, right? And it's true. How you think and feel matters. We definitely have to have Missy back on the show. And I look forward to our next show. There's so much to say. The Promise of Spring, if you haven't watched it yet, that one is free. Summer Daze, I'm charging a fee. It's affordable. You can also get in on the membership. It's a little bit more affordable. And one of the bonuses is that you get a ticket for the online conferences, including the paid one. So it's a steal of a deal. Make sure you check out my Buy Me a Coffee. wish you all a very well day. I'm going to remove myself from the stage here. Trying to remove it's not letting me, okay, everybody, you're stuck with me for another minute here. It's not letting me remove myself from the stage. Just want to hang out with you that much more, right? The dissolve. I'm dissolving into timelessness here with you, okay? Oh, it's going to work now. All right, everybody. Gina, Virginia, Casella here. Thank you for watching Story Species, Story Medicine. When you share your story, share your medicine. And when you receive a story, receive medicine. I thank you so much. Hope you got a dose, one of the best prescriptions out there, absolutely free. Take care, everybody. See you next.